Hi folks, this is a continuation of our ongoing series on boat shopping. We did have the opportunity to take a walkthrough of a 1991 Tayana 52, a pedigreed blue water boat, and we really are focusing on blue water specific boats these days. And so it wasn't the boat we went to go see, but when the opportunity arose, we jumped at it. As we understood it, the husband of this couple is a skipper on one of the J-class boats, and if you're which really makes him a rock star in our world, at least. I mean, if you can get an opportunity to crew on a J-class boat, that puts you in the upper echelon of sailors around the world, and wonderful opportunity if you ever get the chance. The boat was listed for sale, I believe, the day before we saw it, and this poor woman had no opportunity whatsoever to clean up in advance of our visit. But we thought that was charming in a way. You'll get to see what it really is like to live on board a boat and what the boat's going to look like most of the time, especially if you've got two small children. And she was just perfect. She was so good and so welcoming. And so we did look at the whole thing and think like, this is the life. These guys are living the life. We did unfortunately have an audio problem with our video, and that we traced it back to the Bluetooth feature on our GoPro Hero 3 Plus camera that we use. That when that feature is on, when the Bluetooth is operational, it conflicts with our microphone, and you get a ticking sound, which is almost impossible to deal with. It's so annoying. So I'm going to try to do some voiceovers to make up for that. But in the meantime, let's jump to it and take a look. Here we have a 1991 Tianna 52 aft cockpit with teak decks and white hull. And let's take a look. Off camera, Richard is telling me here that the owners are planning on upgrading the electronics package on the boat. It's somewhat dated at the moment. We weren't sure if that was included in the price or if it was something that was an option for a buyer. The owners are obviously safety oriented. We've got lots of throwable life rings, dam buoy type thing, obviously a life raft up on the foredeck. So there's a good amount of safety equipment shown, which is always a good thing. At this point, Richard's pointing down to the teak side decks, and we get into a short discussion about the attachment methods for teak on the top sides of boats. In this case, the Tiannas have screws. There's thousands of screws that hold the teak down, and they're probably glued as well. But the screws always offer a point for water to get into the deck. The decks are cored usually with balsa. Some of the more modern boats have synthetic cores, but that's typically what you see is a balsa cord deck. And if water gets in there, it can be, it's one of those things where the real attachment points for things like shrouds, they're full fiberglass all the way through. The balsa is a filler that's used elsewhere, and so if water gets in there, it's kind of a bummer, but it's not the end of the world. And a lot of boats do have water in the cores, but the more modern design is to vacuum bag and glue the teak down, and I think that the benefit of that is that you get to a lot more longevity out of the teak. The teak almost always starts out being 10 millimeters thick, and it just wears down with exposure to sun and water. And so after a while, you've lost 4 millimeters or so of teak, and the bungs start to pop out where the screw attachment points are. And the only thing you can do then is either replace the deck or pull that screw out and countersink it a little bit further down and then put it back in. The glue down decks, I suspect that you could probably just use them right until there's nothing left but a veneer on top, and then you'd be, so you'd probably get a little bit more more lifespan out of them. But these teak decks were in pretty good shape. We didn't see any major problems. This is a well-designed galley. It's important when you're contemplating cooking while on passage to imagine yourself in a very rolly sea, and you need to have areas where you can brace yourself up against the countertop and not be thrown out into the salon. Something to keep an eye on in some of the newer boats. I like this nav station. It's big. The nav station is always the man cave of the cruising sailboat. So the bigger it is, the better, and it's nice when it faces forward and out into the salon where you can socialize with other people. The joinery in this boat held up beautifully over the years, and these handholds, as you enter into the main salon, are a case example. They get touched every day, and look at how smooth and shiny they are, and how well the original woodwork was done. The table shows the same way. The main salon dining room table shows beautifully. Again, they did a wonderful job at Tayana when they built this boat, and the woodwork shows nicely. Here I'm pointing out that they've got a 110 outlet underneath a European style 230 volt outlet, and it's one of the issues that you have with European spec boats. European power and American power are virtually incompatible, but there are ways around it. As we enter the master stateroom, we find an off-center queen bed and obviously tons of stowage all over the place. This layout was probably one of the choices that was offered by Tianna when the boat was ordered. Again, the woodwork is high quality, great veneer that's held up well, no damage that we could see from water infiltration or anything like that. It showed very nicely. This curved cutout bulkhead must have been something to try to produce at the factory, but it's a beautiful design feature, and I really think it makes the look of the interior of this boat. You just don't see this kind of stuff anymore, and I don't know. I find it to be very cool. We saw a little bit of water damage next to the companionway, which was, I suppose, expected. Also, we see the quarter berths that we traditionally see, but these are big. These have lots of space in them. They're done nicely, and these are the kids' rooms. Okay, so recap on the Tianna 52. We have a little less video of the boat itself than we've had in some of the other boat shopping videos that we've done, and so I'm going to talk a bit more about bluewater boat design here in this particular recap. The Tianna 52 is probably one of the best bangs for the buck that you're going to find. If you're out looking for a bluewater boat and you had less than $175,000 to spend, this would be a fantastic place to look. This boat, I looked it up. It's still for sale as of when I shot this video, and it was listed at $150,000. If you were able to negotiate perhaps a 10% discount on that price, you'd really be doing well for yourself. I mean, if you beat the bushes hard, you'd find some older boats for less money, you'd find some smaller boats for less money, but you wouldn't find very many boats like this for $150,000, especially 1991, something that's newer than 1990. So it would be really something to look at. I think for people looking for these types of boats, I would say that Tianna is a great brand to look at. The older boats, when you get back into the 80s, the interiors look a little bit dated, and of course you get older, electronics and older systems and all that. But anything that's newer than 1990, and especially if you get something that's in the 2000s, those boats are every bit a Hylas or a Passport or something similar to that. I think. It's a Bob Perry designed boat, and pretty much anything that's designed by Bob Perry is going to be a a blue water capable boat. I mean, that's pretty much what he does. He's the guy when it comes to blue water boat design. The second thing is, the Tayang yard, where Tiannas are made, has a fantastic reputation internationally as a fantastic yard. Right in there with Queen Long, which is the yard where Hylas has come out of. And one of the things the Taiwanese bring to the table is that they build boats exactly the way they were drawn by the naval architect. And that's something that can't be said for some of the other brands, unfortunately some of the American brands in particular. But be that as it may, if you do buy a Tianna yacht, you're going to get a boat that's blue water capable all the way. It's got all the features of a blue water boat, heavier displacement, fantastic stability numbers, a good skeg hung rudder that's going to that if you hit a log or something during passage, it's probably going to survive. It's not going to break off in heavy seas or something along those lines. So I guess the next question that would come up would be, if it's such a great boat, why didn't you and Wendy buy it? And I think that the big reason for that, besides the fact that it wasn't the boat we came to see, is that we're really starting to look, I think, a little bit more at doing a center cockpit boat. Below 50 feet, most of the boats are aft cockpit. And in fact, I'd say 90% of the market is aft cockpit designs. And this Tianna, believe it or not, I'm almost positive there's a center cockpit version of it. And if there's not in a 52, there will be in a 50 or something similar to it. Most of the Tianna boats, just like almost all the Hylases and Passport boats, are going to be center cockpit. The reason that 90% of the boats are aft cockpit is because that's something that the average person really likes. And I think that that almost all the charter boats are going to be aft cockpit designs. Some of the things that happen with an aft cockpit design, there are going to be design trade-offs that happen because of it. And typically what happens is you get a lot more entertaining area in an aft cockpit design. You get better sight lines of the sail. The reason a lot of them are dual helm these days is because, well, it's a racy looking type of thing, but it also gets the helmsman up on one of the rails where he can see past the sails and get good sight lines on what's happening out in front. And so those things are the attractions of the aft cockpit. The things that are drawbacks to it are that you typically end up with a very low ceiling height below. And that means that you get a couple of quarter berths underneath, but rarely are you going to see a master stateroom aft in an aft cockpit design. That means that the master stateroom goes to the bow in a V berth, and hopefully you get a nice island queen set up there, and everything's all good. Some people, when they are in the bow of the boat, they feel that that's a bouncier part of the boat. If you're in a kind of a rolly anchorage, the bow's going to bounce up and down a lot more than the stern is. So, if you own the boat, you could probably just go. If that's the case that night, then just go, stay in one of the quarter berths and you'll be okay for short term type thing. The other thing that happens is the traveler assembly moves around on these designs. And so that's something to think about. On your typical charter type boat or production boat, you've got a coach roof mounted traveler and what they call a German main sheet system, which is a kind of a double-ended main sheet that zigzags up and down to the boom. And that's because the power that's being generated by the mainsail is huge, and it puts a lot of stress on the gooseneck and also on the boom. And when your main sheet attachment point is basically at the center line of the boom, at most, it's just everything has to be stronger. The traveler has to be stronger. The attachment points to the coach roof have to be stronger. The diameter of the line has to be increased, and traveler location is a big deal in boat design. They end up having to make a lot of concessions for that. In the Italian boats, the Grand Solais and the Solarises, you'll see that they've moved the traveler assembly to the cockpit sole, usually right in front of the binnacle. And this is not a great location for it because it's kind of in the way. But you can work around that. It allows the main sheet control winch to be close at hand for the helmsman. So that's a benefit. In the center cockpit boats, you're going to see the traveler get mounted behind the cockpit, which is really a better location. If you could do it on an aft cockpit design, it would be a good thing. But if you look at the boats themselves and the layouts, you'll see why that really can't happen. So with the center cockpit, you've got a main sheet that attaches to the back of the boom, which is a much better location. There's you got a lot more leverage on that boom and the forces that are coming down out of the mainsail. Especially with an in-mast furling system, you're going to have a loose luft sail, and the clew is going to be the point where the forces exit the mainsail and into the boom. And when you've got a main sheet attachment point directly below there, you're talking about a great, the energy path is run right straight through to the aft end of the boat, and everything's great. But again, you've got a kind of a smaller entertaining area. You're a little higher up off the water. You don't get the sight lines of the sails quite as much, but you also have a beautiful aft stateroom. So these are the things that make a center cockpit boat attractive to us. We can live with some of the down points, but when you get above 50 feet, you're going to see a lot more center cockpit designs. In fact, almost all of the big boats have a center cockpit type of design. And when you're in the 50 to 60 or 50 to 70 foot range, sometimes you'll see an aft cockpit design where it's just a flat deck. Some of the Swans are done that way. The CNB, a lot of the CNB type boats are that way, where it's a very racy look, where you've got a couple of helm stations set on a flat deck and really nothing else around it. And although that looks kind of cool, I think that for long passages you'd feel pretty exposed, and there's not. And of course, now you do have space below for a big cockpit and all this, but I kind of like the protection of having something around you. Seating, coamings, those types of things count for a lot. So back to this boat, it's a great boat, and I would advise people looking for a true blue water boat to take a look at the Tiannas. They're probably a better price point than the Hylases. Not as well known in the States, but you see ads for them in cruising world and stuff, and so they're spending money to market the boats. So take a look and see. If you have any questions or comments, by all means, I try to get back to everybody. And if you're liking the series, then press the like button, and you'll get more of it. And the subscribers are great too, so we love having those folks as well. So we'll see you soon, and that's that.